I saw a lot of content creators do stuff like this, and immediately I decided to copy it. And also, I watched 20 movies this month, and I really want to talk about them. So, shout out to everyone who inspired me, and let's get in the video. For the start of the month, I wanted to go with something light, something that I know I might like. I'm a big Aubrey Plaza fan, and I was excited to see her new movie. But surprise, surprise, even though she is one of the leads, she's barely in it, at least visually. But still, this was a fun coming of age movie. While getting high on mushrooms, the main character accidentally summons her older self. Which at this point, who doesn't want to summon Aubrey Plaza while being high? My grading might look lower than most, but I enjoyed this movie. I believe it does a good job talking about the growing up struggles, family dynamics, finding love, and understanding your sexuality. And it got me emotional here and there as well. But I just don't think I'm the right demographic for this, so it didn't hit that hard. At first, my initial reasoning for watching this movie was I wanted to watch Alien Romulus, and this one was between that and Prometheus. And after learning that Romulus isn't a sequel for Covenant, I'm not sure if I'll watch it soon. I love Prometheus, and Covenant really reminded me why I love it that much. Great storytelling, nerving scenes, claustrophobic environments that you could easily get hunted down, a weird robot that fucks around. It's just amazing. It also reminded me that I don't really remember what happened at the end of the Prometheus. I was genuinely confused at one point and had to pull up a recap video at the middle of the movie. I'm happy to see Alien franchise getting newer movies, but I would much rather them being done by Ridley Scott. Can't say nothing about Romulus without watching it, but I know it's a separate story and I just want to see Michael Fassbender having weird space adventures. Life was alright. It had a top heavy cast that instantly intrigues the eye. Also, thanks to the internet, we know how great of a chemistry Jake Gyllenhaal and Ryan Reynolds have. I just wish they had more screen time together. Rebecca Ferguson does a stellar job as well, but this was just an okay sci fi horror film that is mostly predictable. Indestructible alien life form, people trying to destroy it, people failing, it's getting stronger, yada yada yada. We've seen stuff like this before. But nonetheless, enjoyable, decent length movie with reasonable pacing. This was really fun. It's a great claymation, and even though I know how hard it is to make these movies, I was still shocked to hear that it took 5 years to make this movie. Stellar voice acting all around, and it made me realize we need more movies with Ray Fiennes doing voice acting.
You fucking retract that bit about my cunt fucking kids.
If you love silly British humor and body dynamic movies, you would really enjoy this one. The general dynamic and dialogue, I mean, at least one sided dialogue, between Wallace and Gromit was really fun to watch, and now I'm excited to see their new movie on Netflix. It is unfortunate that we can't get Peter Sallis as Wallace anymore, rest in peace, but it sounds like Ben Whitehead does a good Wallace, so I can't really complain. The folks behind this movie are also done Chicken Run and Flushed Away, so if you haven't watched this one but liked those, I'm pretty sure you'll like Wallace and Gromit. This is basically a conversation and debating based psychological horror movie that includes Hugh Grant as the main antagonist, who has a weird ass house. I didn't know if we needed something like this, but I'm not mad at it. Hugh Grant does a fantastic job being a very unsettling, weird, no too much for its own good, middle-aged psycho, and I feel like I will watch more portrayals like this from him in the future. Like I said, this film is basically debating about the concept of religion, and it also contains Monopoly, yeah, the board game, Lana Del Rey, and Creep by Radiohead for some reason. How and why you might ask? Well, you just gotta watch and see for yourself. For me, religion is something that I don't really care what people believe to. Others' beliefs are none of my business, and mine shouldn't be theirs either. At its core, it's just a spiritual belief system that pushes you to be a good person. You can interpret however you like, I guess, but that's how I see it. But Hugh doesn't, so he just torments these two poor Mormon girls while being weird. Anyway, a cool concept for a horror movie. Somehow, I'm struggling with forming my thoughts about this movie. I didn't like it that much and I wouldn't necessarily recommend to anyone. Only reason I gave it 3 stars is the movie takes place in a post-apocalyptic world after the biblical rapture, which is an interesting concept for a movie to explore. And also it has very minimal dialogue, so the most of the movie has to rely on expressions and mimics of the characters, which once again an interesting concept. But in my opinion, The movie has a very unsatisfying world building. It just allows you to understand the concept of this world with a couple of text screens, which I found very insufficient. Also, the movie has a lot of unanswered questions, and it seems like they just wanted to leave most to the interpretation of the viewer, which looks lazy here. I get doing that at the end of the movie and maybe doing it on one more thing, but when you leave people who write analysis for the movie going, well, this might be this or that, and this other thing can possibly be this, but we are uncertain. This just looks like you don't really know what you're doing and being mysterious just for the sake of it. Also, they tried to nerve one of the best scream queens of our generation, Samara Weaving, by making her mute. She still does a good job though. Okay, this movie fucks hard. Don't get distracted with the general rating of it. If you love slasher horror and want to see a different take on it, this is your gem. The most of the movie is on the killer's POV and it just makes it like following Jason Voorhees around while he does his shenanigans. It is obvious that the Friday the 13th franchise is a huge inspiration for the makers of this film. The acting might be hit or miss here and there, and on some scenes you can see the movie had a low budget, but doesn't really bother me. My favorite concept though was the lack of score in this movie. Rather than using tense music in tense situations like any other horror flick, In a Wild Nature only uses the sound of the nature and the general environment. It doesn't makes it scarier or anything, but makes the movie more grounded and realistic. By the way, they shot this movie near the Kawartha Lakes in Ontario, Canada, and some of the shots in this movie are straight gorgeous. Oh, and for one last note, the last 10 to 15 minutes of the movie was a lot tense for me and actually had me on the edge of my seat. If you like art house horror, you should give it a shot. If you grew up with a being a high school kid in the USA fantasy, then this is your shit. It has a lot of stereotypical characters of a US high school, like the rebel kids, loser kids, rich but douche kids, and more. It is kind of weird watching a concept like this in the year 2024, because it feels like we stopped writing characters like this in the modern movies. But I actually enjoyed my time. The acting carries in this movie, especially from Julia Stills, and Heath Ledger. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is okay too. The ending and how everything came together was a bit unrealistic and ridiculous for me. I couldn't really emphasize with what the characters are going through because of that, but nonetheless, it was an entertaining teen comedy drama to watch. Okay, one thing about me is I'm really far behind with great animations. I love to watch them, but for some reason, I just don't. I'm trying to get better at this, so I had to start with one of the best of them. Nobody can tell me these movies are only made for children. This is a post-apocalyptic world where every single human being has abandoned the planet. Because of the pollution they made at the first place made the world unlivable. The characterization of the robots, especially of Wally and Evie, was fabulous. And the love they formed with each other without even using sentences, but just simple words and their names was very hitting. I don't even know what more can I say about this movie. It was all around perfect. Combination of animation and real life acting was a nice touch. Pacing was amazing, world building is great. This movie was simply iconic. This piece of gem had a budget of $800. $800. That is actually insane how good this amateur movie was. Found footage horror might be the most underrated type of the genre, and this movie made me realize once again how good can it be. Every single person in this movie played their role very genuinely, and at some aspects that is kind of scary. I think every amateur filmmaker should thinking about making a found footage horror movie. It is both easy to shoot and also can be extremely unique. It is not a long movie, only 62 minutes, and it's on YouTube. I recommend at least checking it out to show support for the folks at That's a Bad Idea YouTube channel. Okay, so first things first, I heard Studio Ghibli hitting people with copyright strikes for using shots from their movies, so all you're going to see is these royalty-free environment shots. But for the movie, this was a super chill family movie I think everybody can enjoy. Our style was obviously amazing, but the characters had a lot of emotions as well. And these emotions intertwine with the other situations that they were in. What represents what can be interpreted by anyone. I'm not here to do that. Great movie, great art style, thumbs up. Honestly, I know this is one of the most famous movies ever, but I wasn't expecting to love it this much. This is basically a single room debating movie about criticizing the justice system at its time. There were a lot of different thoughts about what is valid or not, and listening to their opinions while forming my own really entertained me. You can see some people's beliefs only takes the same shape of others. Some are afraid to form their own, so they lie. Some are so loud with theirs they don't even care about what other people think and more. Watching these men's dynamic with each other, not only on the subject of a lawsuit, but on the personal side, was intriguing to see. I could watch 12 more movies like this. Another Ghibli saw another royalty-free video. Weirdly, this one pushed me to think more than the other Ghibli movies I watched, so I think I liked this a tiny bit less because of it. Don't get me wrong, I still enjoy this film a lot. The art style was even better than the others, the characters were unique on their own right, and the world was much more complex, which was a plus. And after reading reviews and analysis about it, I understand the subtext even more, and that made me like it a bit more. The complexity of the characters were fun, and with knowing more things about the movie, I might give it a rewatch after some time. I think if this movie was longer than 76 minutes, it would have actually bored, but the pacing was well balanced for its runtime. The expressionist set design was very eye catching, and at some scenes, I found myself pausing the movie to look at the details in the designs. At our current time, the ending of this movie might be predictable, but with acknowledging this was made in 1920, it is a genius way of pulling a plot twist. This was by far the most boring movie I ever watched in my life. Some movies can have slower pace and do a good job with it. This one, failing miserably. Dual and emotionless acting can carry a movie as we can see in the works of Yorgos Lanthimos and Wes Anderson, but those characters are actually interesting. In here, none of the characters had an interesting part of them. I had some sort of high expectations for this film because it goes as a horror movie and gets decent reviews, but it bore me and disappointed me so much that I don't even care about its deeper meaning. The concept of a rat in the kitchen is one thing, but that rat cooking like a Michelin chef is bonkers. It was super entertaining, another famous animation that I've never watched before. I wish the original language of this movie was French. It would have felt more authentic, and yeah, I know I can watch it in French dub, but still, amazing movie. I need to watch more of these. This was the least Wes Anderson movie I've ever watched. It kind of looked like Wes Anderson inspired. But other than that, it was a beautiful story about three brothers' spiritual adventure and reconnecting with each other. To me, there wasn't that much of a deep explanation for this one. It's just a beautiful and funny story. Deep down, I wanted the story to just take place in a train, but this was nice too. Okay, now this is a Wes Anderson movie. Great set of characters and great casting for them. The story spends time with every single major character too. This is a very well balanced movie. The topics like general family dynamics, suppressed love, and friendship is very well handled. I can see myself easily watching this one. One of the most famous Chrysler movies, and I finally got to watch it. Fantastic action movie, and I should have watched this long time ago. Now I'm thinking about watching the other movies of the franchise too. The movie itself can get a little too on the nose and a bit predictable at the times, but those didn't bother me at all. But there are three characters in this movie that genuinely annoyed me, and these characters should be fired from their fictional world jobs. First one is the emergency call receiver lady, second one is the deputy chief of the LAPD, and the third one is the reporter. If you know, you know. So, Yippee and Merry Crisis, this movie was gold. This movie was a great example of the claymation technique. Some songs were good, but I don't know. This movie is not for me, I guess. I watched the first half of it probably a month ago and watched the rest of it recently. It didn't really immerse me into the story nor the world, but I can see why people love this one. Not me though. I enjoyed some aspects of it, but that's it. But I'll say Jack getting shot down by the US government was very funny. Thanks so much if you stay until the end. Liking and subscribing is very appreciated. I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.